Live from the Talking Joe Studios. It's Talking Joe.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, welcome to Talking Joe, the best and longest running dedicated G.I. Joe comics podcast and sometimes streaming show. Today we are doing a very special episode to tie in with Cobra Convergence 6. We are going to be talking about Crazy Cobras, bizarre baddies, those wacky weirdos of the Cobra ranks. But I'm not going to be doing that alone. I'm going to be joined by my good buddies. And here they are. First up, it's this guy.
I really want to talk Joe with you. It's a real American Tim. American Tim.
It's Tim Finn.
Hello, viewers and listeners, and Mark.
Last and least. And also joining us today, we've got a very special return of the big man. It's the Chief.
Eight pairs. Rubber nipples.
Chief Doggy Dog. Whoa! Always feel like an interloper when I'm on this show. So you'll notice as well, shirt on today.
Didn't you found this show?
You're too kind, Mr. Finn. Yes, but the answer is yes. With my good buddy Ben Flying Retro, it was November 2018, and we did a Cobra Convergence last year. Was it last year?
Year before, I think that's
year
been.
before, was it? With SJ7. We did something to do with the Cobra IDW series. But,
that's right. Yeah, you did this amazing Cobra IDW show with like lots of sort of like an audio adaptation almost of the comic book, sort of acting it out with all sorts of different actors and whatnot.
Always nice to get the invite to come back on and lowbrow it and bring the tone down from you fine gentlemen's up-class product.
So excellent. So Chief started Talking Joe a few years ago with Ben, and since then he's broken and replaced a few of his co-presenters. So we've had Full Force's Chris McLeod, Diagnostic 80. We then had Steve Jubber from Joburg, and since then I joined, and when Chief left, Tim joined, and also Jay for the Devil's Due episodes that we do. So the mix of we try and keep in our lane of a bit of a comics focus, and that typically involves looking at the latest issue of A Real American Hero as it comes out, a look back to the Devil's Due era of comics from the early 2000s, and also trying to get hold of some of those creators and delve inside their minds and find out more about their process. And that's good to see. We've had lots of the recent creators on the show.
All you guys have done fantastic stuff with the show and taken it to heights, that I wasn't able to do. So hats off to you boys. Fantastic job as always. It's a great listen. Very quick question. Again, I don't hate on me for derailing it even further, but I'm very interested to know, very just quickly, you guys' thoughts. Issue 300, when it comes out, which I presume is going to be December or the end of the year, will it be a good issue? Yes or no? Will it be worthy of an issue 300?
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Positivity.
Definitive.
Excellent.
I would like to hope so. I'm positive. I'm feeling in a positive frame of mind, an optimistic frame of mind. I think we're going to have an exciting ride to get to 300.
Good.
So what are we doing today for Cobra Convergence? So we're talking about Crazy Cobras. So the theme of our show today is looking at some of our favorite, real wacko weirdo designs from the ranks of the Cobra Legion, and sort of looking at the toys.
Who's the art here? Fantastic.
This is, I believe, Earl Norham. From one of the sort of young adult books of G.I. Joe that was released. I imagine, Tim, you've got this in your collection somewhere, do you?
I have two of the Earl Norham roughs for these paintings, but not the final ones. Norham's
Oh, wow.
neighbor 7 or 8 years ago listed a bunch of his paintings on eBay, and
Wow.
that's where I got one or two.
I was just thinking about the book, that you might have the book in your collection. Never mind the original
The
art.
original art, yeah.
Oh,
That's putting down your Uno card.
I don't have the Earl Norham original painting. I do have the color Earl Norham sketch. I don't know if it's technically a thumbnail or a comp. It depends on how Norham was working with his art director. But I don't have this novel, and I probably should get all the novels.
Yeah, they're Earl Norham's illustration work is just incredible, and the covers to these books is amazing. Some of his GI Joe work is amongst the best, but also less well known, I'd say. Because it's not comics, not toys. So there's a lot of Cobras to choose from. This is a cover to I think it was 212 by Adam Rich's illustration of all of the Cobra Legion. We've had a few other covers where there's tried to illustrate a lot of the cast all together. I think I could spot the guy that you had as your selection in there. Yeah, he's there. I can see him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sort of towards the middle.
Oh, I see him.
Just off center. Yeah.
I'm looking for a snarl. He seems pretty calm here.
You're not quite calm. He does look mean. Maybe not snarling, but a little bit grumpy. And let's see another one. Okay, and this is the Jamie Sullivan cover art that is soon to grace the covers in the run up to issue 300. So I think it begins with around about 296, I believe, something like that. There's going to be a set of five covers with featuring lots and lots of Cobras across the covers as they are joined up, and some quite obscure characters in amongst that. So against all of those different Cobras that we could choose, it was not necessarily the easiest job to grab one. And actually, I'll point out that our man Mr. Finn has got a bit of form with some of the more obscure Cobras as well, because of Cobremba. Do you want to tell us about what Cobremba was, Tim, and how it links to some of the random Cobras?
In December of 2020, I drew and posted a G.I. Joe drawing every day, following the lead of Jovember, right? Which is November. Am I getting this right? I've started to take the word Joe and Cobra and combine it with any month to think about any variation of this. So I sometimes actually forget what the original one was. And I was hoping to start a small internet revolution. And I draw a fair amount in my sketchbook for my students, but with my jobs, I haven't drawn much for myself the last few years. And it was the pandemic, and we're all sort of at home anyway. And I had an Instagram to promote, and I thought I could bring these three things together: drawing more often for myself, flexing my Instagram's muscles, and celebrating not just the obscurity of a lot of Cobra characters, but very specifically the color schemes. When I think of G.I. Joe, I'm often thinking of color combinations. And Cobra takes that a step further because they're the bad guys and they're so much fun. And coloring this was the best. Coloring each of these was the best part.
Very good.
Cool.
Lots of fun characters there. Who's this guy in the middle on the screen at the moment?
That's the 94 Viper or the 93 Viper, when that's the redo of the original 86 Viper. But to me, it's always looked like a Toxo Viper or something that fell in a vat of purple paint, because he looks too much like a hostile environment guy.
Yeah, there's ended up being quite a lot of purple in the selection, I feel. But
Yeah, I mean, it's look at me today. I'm specifically, our co-host Jay in the last episode we recorded made the comment that early on Cobra was so much about blue and red and sometimes purple, and certainly if you're thinking of blue and red, you're going to get to purple. So I thought not wearing any green shirts or beige shirts or light gray shirts for our Cobra celebration today, I would, in front of my red backdrop and my, it's not a G.I. Joe, but a toy with some Reddit in anyway. I thought I'd wear some Cobra colors.
Cool. So from across this, this vast choice of Cobras that we could go for, many of which, as we've just seen from your looking briefly at your Instagram, do have quite out there color schemes.
You know what? I didn't say my Instagram, so let me do it. Let me do it now. It's at A Real American Book. Okay, please continue.
And so against that giant choice of characters, how did you land on your character, and what was it? I'm waiting for the turn of the slide for when you say it.
For Cobra Convergence 6 and our Talking Joe discussion today of Crazy Cobras, I picked Gristle. This is not a Cobrembra drawing. I did this last night at 10 p.m. after Mark sent a reminder email. Hey, tell me who you're picking because I need to come up with some slides. And I thought, I've always been struck by Gristle because I stopped buying the action figures as a kid in 92. And what was really happening in 91, 92, 93 is I was transitioning from kid buying toys to play to adult collector buying toys to keep. And there was some crossover in there where I was still playing, but I was buying a second one and putting it on a shelf. And so in my mind, there's this sort of nostalgia and bittersweet feeling for the final figure or two that I did buy as a kid, and what would have been the next figure or two or three that I bought had I continued. And Gristle was imminent. And I'm struck by this guy because his year, we're sort of past this threshold of more and more interesting individual Cobras, right? Like a Major Blood and a Scrap Iron and a Big Boa. And by 92, we're getting mostly just Vipers or soldiers with masks, and there are hundreds of them. And so Gristle seems like this late addition, and in a different world, had the show continued for one more year, had the show the Deke episodes, that is, had the 2 seasons not had orders of about 20 episodes, had they had orders of 30 or 40, if G.I. Joe programming had continued, if Larry Hama had any connection to this character, and I don't think he wrote the file card, so I don't think he has any connection to this character would have shown up in the comic book. He would have shown up on the TV show. And even if we didn't like him because he was silly or poorly written or not given a purpose, we would have had some familiarity with him. And so he's this very strange outlier to me with this really exciting, too colorful costume, and then this bonkers weapons, and this really energetic painting. He's got this funny snarl, and he's got a really silly haircut. He's got 4 ponytails, or he's got 2 ponytails and crazy side tails, right?
Front tail.
Oh, he's Jamaican.
And he's from Jamaica, and when you think of grease, slime, and dirt, you're basically thinking about Gristle. Not only is he a corrupt crime boss, but his personal hygiene is absolutely disgusting. During the months he spent training to be into headhunters, he didn't bother to shower once, right? So we've had a Joe or a Cobra who doesn't bathe. We've had a Joe or a Cobra who's got gritted teeth in their toy figure sculpt. I guess I'm thinking of Naugahyde. We've had criminals, right? This guy was going to be in DEF, and DEF was pulled from the next year's line, and those figures were just put into the main line, right into Battle Core, what was about to become Battle Core. So I'm just fascinated by this guy because he seems to be doing a lot of things right. He's an individual. He's not an army builder. He's from an interesting place. He's not just Cobra, but he's some kind of criminal, and yet sort of no one knows him.
So I was going to. I've never seen him before, but I was going to suggest maybe Headman. I mean, I don't know anything about him really apart from that Andy Wildman drawn arc. So this dude worked as part of that group.
Ostensibly, yes.
Right.
So Headman, we do know because he does show up in 1 or 2 issues, and he does show up in 2 episodes of the Deke cartoon, and he dies.
What's his gig, Headman? He's just into drugs and money?
Yeah, he's a drug dealer or drug manufacturer.
Wearing a domino mask.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, fine. But he had ties to Cobra or not?
In the animated series, no, not directly. A Cobra character is buying drugs from him, and so the Joes and the Cobras team up to stop him because drugs are bad. And
I was going to say a similar thing happens in the comics that he's sort of selling drugs in to the Cobra kids. Right. In which location is it?
Broca Beach, is it?
Broca
Beach, that's right. And so the sort of the Cobras don't want him there, and the G.I. Joe drug elimination force sort of turn up and take them on and sort of kind of team up with the Cobras to stop them.
But he's got all his goons are wearing like pinstripes, and
that's right.
It just had the feel of a classic Batman villain with goons.
He does a bit, doesn't he? And berets.
Yeah. So Headman to me is definitely a cartoon villain because of that domino mask and because of the pinstripe suit. And Gristle, again, there's almost nothing written concerning him. Right, here we go. So I had even forgotten that this existed. It's a Bob McLeod cover.
It is, yeah.
Is that the cover that was available at the convention, or is that the cover that was available through previews afterwards?
Was described as a diamond edition cover.
Okay. All right, so a diamond exclusive. So which is to say the direct market. You could get it at a comic book store.
He's even got his snarl on that cover as well, look.
So a couple years later, in the toy line, for the G.I. Joe Collectors Convention, there's a box set. It's themed, and it has a bunch of Joes and Cobras, and they all have new color schemes, and Gristle's one of them. So he does have a version 2, and his colors are less crazy.
I've got it here actually.
Oh,
hold it up. There we go.
Right, there you go. I like this emblem on his shoulder. It looks like on this image on the right hand side, it's kind of like a skull with almost like crossbow bolts through the skull.
I think it's for the Headhunters faction,
and a Cobra logo on the skull. So yeah.
So basically, the way that I think of Gristle, I also think his name is really funny because Gristle is a gross thing, right? Because Gristle is oil and grease and crusty burnt stuff on the bottom of your cooking pan that you scrape off. And that's a perfect name for a Cobra character. And it feels like a name for a Dreadnought. And I sort of squint, and this guy, he's not a Dreadnought, but he's kind of a Dreadnought, right? He's a criminal.
Yeah, pretty adjacent, yeah.
Yeah, and that second drawing
Dreadnought adjacent.
that second drawing that I did of him, just the head and shoulder, in my mind, I'm just drawing Buzzer, because that's a light-haired Cobra with some kind of ponytail. And the way that I think about Gristle is that he's the Cobra that almost was, right? If not for the convention, he wouldn't even had a second figure. He wouldn't have had any comic book appearances, right? Mark, am I correct? He never shows up in Devil's Due? Because I know he never shows up in Marvel or IDW.
Well, we just saw he appeared on the cover, didn't we, of Devil's Due? But that might be it. That might be it. One of the faces in the crowd. when they're trying to cram in as many Cobra characters as they can.
Yeah, I mean, in a story.
Yeah. I don't
how would
recall
his-
him ever appearing in Devil's Due.
How would his development in terms of making a figure of him have gone? Would someone just said, "I got a crazy wacky idea, let's make this guy," or what? Just I'm just interested in these lesser known, characters, how they get made.
This was the era that Kurt Groen was the lead figure designer. So I don't know that I've seen Gristle's sculpt figure input, the turnaround, right? The pencil drawing, where that's given to the sculptor. But without my notes and my stuff in front of me, my educated guess is that Kurt Groen designed this guy, and he was going to be part of DEF. He was going to be a bad guy. They already had a year of that, and so, like a lot of Cobra, you give him sort of attitude in his costume. So he's wearing this sort of leather vest, like chaps jumpsuit that also has this. I don't know what the texture, what the material of the yellow fabric is supposed to be, but maybe it's also leather. And he's got studs. If you look closely at his package painting, he's got studs sort of on his shoulder and where the legging wraps around his thigh. And then, like a lot of Cobras, he's got 2 knives and he's got a little skull on his. So, he's a bad guy, and he's not just a criminal because he's Cobra. He's a criminal because, they sell drugs. And so, and then he's going to get some crazy weapons because that's the year of crazy weapons. So I think, not in a bad way, nothing sort of special or out of the ordinary in terms of designing the figure. It's like, this is a year with 20 or 30 new characters, so let's just design them.
Yeah.
But my sort of final thought here is that if I had come into G.I. Joe 8 years later, this might have been my first Cobra, right? Because, you might not believe this, but I had blonde hair, right? He kind of has blonde hair. And, I like neon yellow and red. And Gristle's a cool, gross bad guy name. It's like naming a bad guy like Mud Puddle or Vomit or Flat Tire. Like, yeah, Gristle. And so in my mind, it's like, but he's also meant to be sort of repellent. Like his colors are garish. He's got this silly snarl, and his file card says he doesn't bathe. He's not just that he's an individual like Major Blood or Scrap Iron. He's a commander. He's important, right? He's gonna command people. So just in that third word there for his specialty, the toy package is telling you, the kid, what to do with him. Put him in charge. And if you don't have Cobra Commander or Serpentor or the Overlord, and you're playing with G.I. Joe toys around 1993, and you get Gristle, he can be in charge. That's really powerful.
Oh, and actually, while it's on my mind as well, I'll point out that where I'm sharing pictures of the turnarounds of the toys and the art of the figure, generally I am using as my resource 3djoes.com. So if you are not familiar with it, it is the place to go for all of the detail on the figures. They've got these amazing scans, amazing turnarounds. It's one of my very, very favorite websites. So 3djoes.com, just to give them big props and kudos. Voltar.
This guy's so awesome.
Now,
there he goes.
Is he Cobra?
So what is Voltar? I think in the UK he didn't have an allegiance sort of named on his packet, as far as I can remember. I might be wrong on that. But if we skip ahead to his file card,
Was he a Destro flunky?
it's got Destro Flunky written on his file card. It says Iron Grenadiers. So he is the Iron Grenadier General, right?
Yeah. He's got a cool story in one of the special missions. It might be a 2-parter. They're in, I'm just going to guess, at Southeast Asia somewhere. And I'm sure there's a load of Iron Grenadiers and demons, and I forget most of the rest of the story. So one of you boys can bail me out. But you remember, I know you remember it.
You're talking about this one. It's Special Missions 18. It's an issue it's the third part of a series of issues about Snake Eyes and a team of Joes who are in a country sort of in Southeast Asia-ish, and they've been on a mission in somewhere similar to Tibet, and then they're making their way back to an extraction site in somewhere a little bit like Vietnam-ish, and as they're doing so, they sort of get embroiled with this sort of fight between the local warlord, the Destro's sort of team, led by Voltar, and the October Guards. So sort of Joes are kind of caught in the middle and sort of being torn and pulled in different directions as to whether they intervene and blow their cover and potential extraction versus trying to do the right thing and look after the sort of the local villager who's been hiding them in his hut.
Tim made a good point on Gristle in that the snarl on his face, the fact that his file card says he doesn't bathe, leads you to believe he's a baddie. And you've got a visual cue here from Voltar. Look at that tash. I mean, if that is not a mustachio twirling villain, you know, it's very powerful how a few words or just a very small visual cue can lead you down a certain path. But he looks the mutt's nuts, doesn't he? He looks quality. I love the visual on Voltar.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to not get a huge amount of love, but I think he's great. I think he looks brilliant. And
I like the thing. Maybe it's explained here, but I like the fact that he's got this kind of ocular thing, and I don't know if it's explained or not, but I like it not being explained. So has he got lost an eye, and it's kind of a replacement, or is it just some kind of telescopic thing to aid in his battlefield IQ, so to speak, or it's not explained? And I like the fact that make your own story up about what happened. Did his vulture take his eye out? And, I don't know.
As it comes down to perch and
I think of it in two ways. One, and I always forget this. Voltar he's an Iron Grenadier. He's also apparently Battle Force 2000, which doesn't really make sense, because Battle Force 2000 is definitely a sub-team for the Joes, and Hasbro's trying to have it both ways here by giving Battle Force 2000 its own fill-in. But there's nothing in the toy, in the story, right, the advertisement or the comics where Battle Force 2000 shows up that shows Voltar actually being their opposite number, or like having a reason to be their opposite number. It's not like he's driving some vehicle that also has a piece that breaks off and becomes something. But I think his helmet, to Chief's point here, I think his helmet references the futuristic technology of Battle Force 2000. And then I think the color scheme that he has all this gold is referencing the new gold look for Destro once Destro has the Iron Grenadiers. And then very subtly, I think that the eye thing and this helmet on Voltar positions Voltar a little bit more like someone in Destro's family who's wearing a metal thing on his head, even if it's not covering up his face.
I mean, that has to be the greatest backpack accessory ever, or greatest part of a backpack ever. A bird perch, incredible.
Is it actually an antenna or a microphone? That's what we thought it, my brother and I. And I did not realize that one should put the bird there until 20 seconds ago.
See, I knew more than 20 seconds ago, but I don't think when I was actually playing with this figure that I realized it was meant to be a perch. I think I assumed it was like a radio antenna or something. My brother will probably correct me. Peter, let me know what we thought, but I don't remember using it as a perch.
We turned the backpack 90 degrees. So the perch
I think most people probably would have done, and you could still clip the bird on, but he's going to be at an angle.
Doesn't the bird clip to his wrist?
Yeah, it can fit on his wrist as well.
Okay. Yeah.
He is tooled up there. It looks like he's got guns on his right and left leg, and also one on his chest. Is that a gold shooter on his chest as well? He's got 3 pistols. Yeah. So he's a man. He's not one of these generals just standing in the background. Over you go there, troops. I'll stay back here in the hut with my tea. It looks like he's tooled up to actually go out there and lead the troops from the front. So Lovely. Look
Yeah,
at that art as well on that file on the front of the
and
package.
his
Fantastic.
gun is like this weird ornate thing as well. It's quite unique. It's got like a fin on the back, but yeah, it's no mistaking who it belongs to. It's not one of these anonymous guns that's floating around in the box. Who on earth does this belong to? It's yeah, you're not going to forget that
Now
one.
he's not too much of a weirdie, I don't think, other than look. Well, I can know he looks obviously strange and futuristic, and he's got a vulture, which probably is enough to justify the weirdo tag.
He's purple. He's got a sort of a gold pirate eye patch helmet thing and fin. He's got a vulture and a vulture backpack. You know,
Now,
what
I
more
tell
do you
you,
want?
Hasbro missed a trick by not doing a pirate-based figure. I know you just kind of said he is there, but with a cutlass and like a peg leg. I mean, I could see that.
Well, there is Zanzibar is a pirate.
Right? Yeah.
So Voltar to me, to the point we were just making, if you step beyond the first 2 or 3 years where, you know, the original Destro, you know, he's lean and he's not, I mean, he's ostentatious because he has this mask, but sort of from the neck down, the toy, I don't mean the cartoon or the painting, from the neck down, the toy is not at all ostentatious. He just looks like a secret agent. He's got the briefcase to prove it. Cobra Commander dressed up nicely from the neck down, doesn't look ostentatious, but it's when they start acting in the show and, you know, in the comic book, trying to take over the world. But by the time you get a couple years ahead, and the toy designers are embracing more detail in the sculpt, and because the toy line has to compete with more and more other toy lines, and because G.I. Joe's sliding towards science fiction, I think Voltar is this, I don't want to say perfect, but he's this ideal convergence. If you're going to go more ostentatious than 1982, 1983, this is spot on, because he's got a color that says bad guy, right? He's red or he's blue or he's purple, magenta. He's got the gold ornate stuff, which means fancy. He does have all these weapons, right? All these extra pistols. He has an animal. He has a pet. He's got the mustache, right, which says villain. He's got some kind of eye patch, which says villain. I actually imagine that he has his own demon, that Destra has a demon, and then Voltar has his own demon.
Yeah.
His vulture, like his
What do
dark
you-
materials. It's got a demon,
Sorry, I
animal,
haven't-
vulture. No, okay. That's
Ooh.
let's skip past that.
Even, and then to go even further on Tim's point, even his name, Voltar, it's not a word that's recognizable as,
It's made up, isn't it?
made
Yeah.
into a code name. It's, you know, is his name General Voltar? Is that his surname, his family name, or is it just, I don't know. It's again more for the kid to play around with when you're using the character. And I love the fact that on his file card it's a quote from Destro. You know, it's a named character giving you more information about this guy and basically telling you that he's a badass. He's not some clown or flunky. He's the real deal.
This is a good reminder about his name, because when this figure showed up in 88, 89.
It's got
87.
I think
on the
so. It says
card.
87 on the bottom of the card, but I've got a feeling it might be
he's an 80,
88.
he's an 88 figure. Yeah, he's an 88 figure, because all the movie guys are on the bottom half.
Yeah.
I think my brother and I sort of assumed that Voltar as a word was not invented and meant something like bird of prey. But there is this very short but really satisfying history in G.I. Joe and Hasbro copyright searches in the legal department for names that are made up words that sound awesome. Destro, Tomax, Zaymot, Zartan, right? Xandar Zorana, Voltar.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's funny, Chief, you point out that quote at the bottom of Voltar's card. He talks about Destro is talking about Napoleon. Do you know that anecdote from Napoleon? The marshals of France extolling the tactical prowess of a certain young commander. The little corporal cut them off tersely. All very well and good, but tell me one thing. Is he lucky? And this is something that Dr. Mindbender quoted in the pages of A Real American Hero a couple of issues ago, if you recall. And speaking of which, how did Voltar fare in the pages of the book? So he was introduced in that Special Missions 18. He cropped up again in a couple of special missions, including issue 26.
Look at,
which
sorry
is
to cut you off there. That first panel, look at the choice of color. Tim's a big color fan, and well, we all like color, I guess. But look at the background, the very muted blues, which enables Voltar to just stand out in this this hot pink and gold. It's just he's front and center in this for sure.
So this is the issue with the ill-fated mission for the October Guard, where they died for the first time. So before being brought back in the pages more recently. And that storyline then continued in the pages of the regular book. This is issue 92. I think that's Mark Bright on pencils there. Voltar in general mode, commanding a legion of Iron Grenadiers and assortment of demons, and those are Annihilators on the bottom right, I think.
Mark, Voltar has not shown up since the 90s in the Marvel run, right? We have not seen him in the IDW run.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, Tim. We'll get to that at the end, towards the end of the episode, that some of these more fanciful characters haven't shown up so much recently. And there is a reason.
And
we'll
look
get
how he's
to
drawn
that.
the backpack. Look how he's drawn the backpack. Antenna up.
Oh, antenna up. Yeah. Well, I guess you would want to have it up if the Vulture isn't actually, hitching a ride, because otherwise it would just, getting through doors. Big. Yeah. Have to go in sideways everywhere and stuff. So a bit inconvenient.
Who's our next Crazy Cobra?
Bring
Our
him
next
back. Bring
one
him back.
up
Bring him back.
is 1987. It's the year of the weird. So sort of talking to your point, Tim, that things just suddenly started getting a little bit weirder. We had started off G.I. Joe in 82 with a team of guys mostly in very similar green, Cobras mostly in very similar blue. We had an introduction of more sort of individual, unique characters, but still quite grounded, still in those core colors. Firefly, very militaristic. The greys, the camouflage, scrap iron, blues and reds of Cobra. It's funny you say Destro being very subtle, because if your interpretation is that he's got an open shirt down to his chest, it's a little bit more fanciful, but not everybody visualizes it as being bare skin underneath. And then things just sort of got more individualistic up until I think we got to 87. That's when we got the year of the weird, and all of the Cobra characters were just a little bit more out there. The likes of Dr. Mindbender, Bats, Techno Vipers in the purple, but Cobra Commander in his battle armor, Crystal Ball, Big Boa, Raptor, Crocmaster. So we're going to linger on a few characters from this period in the next couple of choices. First choice up, Crocmaster.
Now, what do you think that Eye of Sauron on his belt buckle? What do you think that actually is? Like in not the toy, not what plastic it is, but what that character, that real life Crocmaster, what has he made that out of?
I feel like that's amber or some transparent, not plastic, but something. It's not a precious stone, but it's something a little valuable, and it's like a giant marble. So I feel like if you're standing in front of the real guy, it would, the way that when you hold a marble and you can sort of see through it as space, and if it's got like a pattern, you can see dimensionality to it. I feel like that the black sort of pupil thing would be a shape you can sort of see in space as you move around it.
And it's meant to, I guess, conjure up the idea of an eye, but I don't think he's got an actual giant croc's eye on his belt.
No, because that would have decomposed quite rapidly, I imagine.
I feel like without trying to, 4% of this action figure wandered in from another toy line, and that's Inhumanoids. That if you sort of squint and you think about the feeling of Crocmaster, right? Crocmaster is dread and foreboding, right? He's in the, I mean, you know, not the Herb Trimpe drawing on the left, which is like which is like kind of pleasant, you know. It's like, that's a fun bad guy. And
it looks like a wrestler in that Herb Trimpe drawing.
Yeah, but there's so much in the, was it the second story arc that IDW published in G.I. Joe Origins? No, G.I. Joe Cobra, excuse me. The monthly series after the 2 miniseries. So the Chuckles arc took a break, and right? Is that when he shows up, Crocmaster?
I think I was gonna mention that as well, because that's an interesting, almost, you know, retelling of his origin for a different continuity, where he's the kid, isn't he, on the croc farm, and he ends up feeding his dad to the crocodiles, and then takes on that gig. So this is
the case where
real
where
psycho, you know, you see, whereas the Marvel character, although he appears in a few issues, Cobra, the Cobra Island War and all that kind of stuff, he's not fleshed out or anything, but that IDW series really gave him a background, and, you know, he's a proper psycho. You know, you don't want to mess with him, but it's, and also the way his eyes, the figure, look at his eyes, they're kind of almost non-human in their kind of shape, and the angle on the toy, they're very kind of diagonally down facing. You know,
they're kind of like sort of red Batman sort of triangle slits, aren't they? Really,
they've shaped his head very kind of almost cleverly to make it, even though it is humanoid, obviously it's just got something a little bit wrong with it, something a little bit almost alien about his head sculpt. Which...
There's a figure like this, even the not creepy, foreboding psychopath from IDW, the sort of like normal creepy guy from the Marvel run. So this is also fun and creepy in its own way. It's much more sort of a normal creepy. And what I love about this character is that in Cobra, Hasbro and the people who make stories after Marvel and IDW, and, you know, artwork that comes after, even within Cobra, you have someone who is an other. That you have these bad guys in this terrorist army, and then you have this particular bad guy who's sort of even too weird for Cobra, too dangerous for Cobra, or just too much of a loner, right? So he's not gonna come into the Terradrome and take a shower, or references to Cobras who do or don't bathe aside. He's not gonna come into the Terradrome to like change his gear, or like get a machine gun, or like punch out for the day and then get on a ferret and drive home. Like, this guy just lives outside, right? Like, I don't think he has friends. Like, most of Cobra doesn't like the Dreadnoks. And I actually think most of Cobra is big enough that most of Cobra doesn't know who the Dreadnoks are. I think we only know who they are because we see the story that's told sort of in the command center with Cobra Commander and Baroness. But if you are a Viper who works at the Terradrome, you have heard of Crocmaster and you don't want to run into him. He's not going to kill you. He's not going to feed you to his alligator or crocodile, excuse me. But he's sort of an urban legend around the Terradrome. And if you run into him, you've trespassed.
Yeah.
You know,
it's interesting that in his appearances in the comic, he was definitely kind of a security, you know, head of security or something like that, I'm sure. But on the front of the toy, it says reptilian or reptile trainer. So no mention of security or any position of authority or anything. He's literally there to train the reptiles. Now, in my mind, I like the fact that there's more reptiles. He's training lizards and he's training turtles, and, you know, he's not just training. Otherwise, it would say a crocodile trainer, and you know, do these reptiles belong to Cobra, or are they his own? I don't know. It's so here again. It's, you know, I'm not saying that the toys and the comic have to follow exactly the same train of storytelling or play, but it's kind of cool. You get this figure. If you don't know, you haven't seen his appearances in the comic, you're like, oh cool, he's the reptile trainer, so he's got a mini zoo, in my mind. He's got some kind of base of operations where he is training reptiles, not necessarily in front, in charge of security, warding off Joes and things. So plenty of options for play styles.
What they've done is they've given him a job title, which has given him plenty of scope to grow within that role. I think that is how they'd sell it in the job interview.
Very, very cool appearance for Crocmaster in the G.I. Joe Bergin S-Jub's Renegades play motion.
Excellent. Yeah.
Fantastic appearance from him there. But yeah, he's definitely a weirdo, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, sort of very different takes between the continuities. Played slightly more for comic relief in Marvel continuity, but
still
yeah,
creepy. Still, as Tim pointed out, still creepy. He's going to sleep with his reptiles in the swamp. And he's kind of he's talking their language. It's still creepy.
Yeah. But I'd say definitive appearance so far is probably the Cobra series. Yeah, not to be disloyal to A-Ra, which is generally my favorite, but yeah, it was a good spotlight on this particular character and an interesting take.
This
What's
piece
this
of
one
art
on the right?
Yeah, is this from one of the trading card games, the online?
Yeah, this I think is some art from the Battle. Was it called Battle Files? Battle something online trading card game where. They made art for multiple pieces of art for almost every single character across the whole line. So because they just wanted to stack it with a really rich set of characters that could be collected as these cards. So that one was based on a later version of the toy, I believe. And
quick question about the toy, the middle image, if you will. This is just a breathing apparatus for him to be able to go underwater in the swamp, or is it he's got breathing difficulty, he's got asthma, and it's a breathing aid for him out of the water? I don't know. Legitimate question. Where does it go? What does it attach to?
Doesn't it attach to
it's his shoulder?
Yeah, he doesn't have a backpack, right? I think it's implied that. Is it implied that he? So here's my take: is that. That there's something so wrong with him. He's kind of become a crocodile, and so he needs it to breathe. That's how I think of it. But that's only to make him more of a horror character. And I'm perfectly fine with the sort of the everyday explanation that he spends most of his time underwater and he needs to breathe air. But since he doesn't have airtight backpack or Cobra Eel's backpack, there's an important cue that's missing, and so I think it actually adds to the sort of weird strangeness of him.
I like it that it's like some kind of health issue that he requires this to breathe properly, kind of Darth Vader-ish kind of thing going on. Yeah.
Next up is one of my favorites here. So this is Raptor. One of the most wild and wacky of the Cobras, I'd say. He's sort of bare-chested. He's got a falcon kind of mask. He's got a necklace. He's got a sort of a backpack, which is actually sort of fake bird wings for him to kind of flap about in with fabric, which is quite unusual for Joe's as well. And then he's got, again, his pet bird. He's got a big old buckle on his belt. He's got kind of falcon feet on his feet. And so as a toy, he's quite out there, quite wild. But what appeals to me about the character specifically is kind of the connection to the toys and how somehow they were able to take this toy and craft some interesting stories. So I'll just linger on the toy briefly if you wanted to chip in with some words before we look at the actual comic.
And you obviously associate with him because you're also an accountant.
True.
Now, do you have this kind of get up in your wardrobe when the missus is not around? You're kind of dressing up as a vulture, maybe, or I don't know.
So I think it's important when looking at a toy like this to put your mind to go back in time to, it's early 1986, and Hasbro has finalized the figure, and maybe they have a name, or they have a placeholder name, and they have maybe they have a specialty. They probably have a specialty, and they know that he's not going to be a vehicle driver, right? Because he sort of is gimmicky enough that he doesn't need a vehicle.
It'd flap and then it hits up against the glass of the canopy.
Right. And
wouldn't work.
So they send this artwork to this freelance writer in New York who comes up with characterization and suggests names for each toy. And this guy is also already writing the monthly comic book. And okay, so pretend you're that guy in New York, right? And you get this guy in a crazy bird suit. You can go one of several different ways. You can go sort of fantastic. It's like he's part bird, right? If you get the Crocmaster design, right, you might, it's like, like a different version of the Crocmaster file card is like one of Dr. Mindbender's experiments gone wrong. Crocmaster is a cobra eel whose was DNA crossbred with a crocodile and is turned into an obedient cobra reptilian monster, right? So you could say that Raptor is actually a Birdman. You could say that he's a guy who is crazy and thinks he's a bird, or
he's a tax accountant. Incredible.
To me, this is two things. This is both a part of Larry Hama, the writer, making G.I. Joe sort of less serious and less vicious, which happens a lot, but also funny and snarky, and I don't want to say cynical, but a certain kind of savvy, because this file card is really funny. And it's actually much funnier if you are, I mean, as a kid, like my brother and I were playing with this toy, and we were not going to say that he was a yuppie tax consultant. My brother gave him an AK-47 from Accessory Pack 4, and he took the wing backpack off, and we were off the races. And the fact that in the comics, Raptor does so much interesting stuff with Fred the Seventh adds a lot of legitimacy to this character, however you approach him. But to me, this is just really funny. Like, no, he's not crazy. Like, what's that line at the end of the file card, right? This is an ends to a mean. And if you're thinking like, come on, he's a guy in a bird suit. It's like, no, Cobra is already very ostentatious, right? Dr. Mindbender has a stereotypical villain mustache, doesn't wear a shirt, has a metal codpiece, and wears a giant cape, right? He has high boots, right? And Tomex and Zaymot are circus acrobats who also, and this is a Larry Hama thing, are businessmen. So I think this is, I don't want to say this is actually the only way you could go, but I think this is a way that actually opens it up a lot more, because it's more interesting if he's not crazy.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the picture on that file card of the headdress. It looks like he's taken a real bird and he's done some taxidermy and he's crafted this real bird's head on top of his head. It's incredible. And I'm sure that there were some people, some kids who played him as if he could fly, because that
yeah, of course,
cape he's got on the action figure, in the comic it looks more like a cape, but on the action figure it looks more like almost a glider-ish kind of, he could jump from the top of a hill and he can fly down that hill.
Calls it ultralight aerofoil system.
Yeah. Now I don't know if he does much flying in the comic. I don't remember him doing any
using that. No, not in the comics.
Or that means, but for the toy, yeah, let's get this guy gliding and flying and dive bombing people. But he's like Tim said, he's integral to a massive storyline in the comic. He's used as a real big linchpin in that storyline. Without because he uncovers so much.
There's another reason why my brother and I, another reason why my brother and I were, I'm going to interrupt myself. What are we looking at? The cover is at 59? 57?
That 59, is 59.
Yeah. Okay. So even if you think this guy is silly, the fact that he's on a cover elevates him. The fact that Mike Zeck draws him elevates him. And this cover got a commercial. I mean, the cover is advertising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different toys. The commercial is advertising 6 different toys, and Raptor's, he's in the foreground, right? And there are certain artists who, if you draw an ostentatious costume, it may not get elevated. It may get sort of lowered in esteem. If Mike Zeck draws a Birdman with a pistol, right?
Yeah, if you're not aware of this character and you see that on the comic book shelf, he looks like a badass.
Yeah. You're like, tell me about Bird
a
Guy.
Hawkman or something. It's
Let's check out that commercial.
It's the Joes. Where's the new Cobra Commander?
Yeah, with the new Cobra Pogo. Now it's in front of you. Now it's behind. Raptor, let's take off and attack.
Cobra! Joe's got trouble. He's not as bad. Cobra's got a Pogo and it's up his man. I'm back. You and Tunnel Rat set up a slam defense. Run for gun. G.I. Joe
Cobra!
G.I. Joe, American hero. What will happen? Find out in Marvel Comics.
Yeah, a teeny tiny bit of flapping towards the end.
I mean, I don't know what he is feeding them Falcons, but they were able to pick up Joe's out of their vehicle and actually carry him off. They are strong.
Chief said an important word, and I was going to say, I think, a helpful word. Chief said Hawkman. Like, he looks like a Hawkman, and she said it generically. There is a rich, decades-long history in comics before this character shows up of a guy who looks a lot like that as a superhero. And so a certain population of the comic book reading public, I think, is already ready for a Joe like this. And also, I always forget this, there's a 1981 Walt Disney live-action movie called Condor Man.
With Michael Crawford.
About a superhero who wears a condor suit, which looks a lot like Raptor. And my brother and I had already been renting this on VHS from our video rental store. And so, Crocmaster looks kind of like an alligator, a guy. And then Raptor, he looks like a bird guy. Like, well, I think it works.
I actually thought he looks like, is it Carter Hull? The actual DC Hawkman? Rather than, I think it's Carter Hull or something like that. Anyway,
Carter Hull.
Apologies, DC.
No, yeah. No, you got it.
Apart from the mace, we swapped out a mace just for a pistol. Yeah.
They should have given him a mace, but maybe they'd have got sued.
Copyright infringement there, I think, a little bit too much.
But
also, what does Fred say here? Why is this guy dressed up like a bird? He's a nutcase, right?
Right.
What's he doing loose? What's he doing running loose without a straitjacket? Cobra Commander says
that's Cobra Commander says that.
And then Fred says he happens to be a first-rate accountant, and his work with birds of prey is quite so. Hama is for a moment having it both ways. He's saying, I know what your comment is going to be, kids who think that this isn't realistic enough. Let me talk you down.
But that last Cobra Commander line is delicious as well. He said, "This bird brain is crazier than Dr. Mindbender. I'm sick and tired of wackos in funny suits. What do you sleep in? A nest!" Brilliant.
Yeah, and it also strikes me that maybe he has got a storied, not well known, but available history of his bird training, because Fred Seven's saying, and his work with birds of prey is quite, so maybe there is a back catalogue of, he's a former world-renowned bird trainer.
Yeah, let's fill in that blank. We'll take it in turns. Let's go 3. So he happens to be a first-rate accountant, and his work with birds of prey is quite blank. Tim.
Impressive.
Chief.
Ostentatious.
Mark. Sexy.
Someone was going to say sexy.
And we sort of alluded to it. He's this silly character, but he's brought into this quite important storyline in the pages of ARAL, where Cobra Commander's at this pivotal turning point. He's sort of come across his long lost son, who he had thought had died, and he's contemplating leaving Cobra. and we're introduced to Fred as a character who eventually, takes over as Cobra Commander and tries to, pretend that he's the original Cobra Commander and so on. So it's quite a pivotal turning point moment that and Raptor plays a key part of it. And
this bit, that's quality where he's winging that thing and gives him the scent or the
he's tracking down the Joes, and he gets this sort of model of the APC, and he's sort of wearing it around for the Falcons to sort of go.
Where did he get that? Because he says, "See this model of a Joe vehicle." It's like he's quickly whipped it up in his wood shop.
Like, I went to the toy store and I bought it.
The lure, that is what he calls it, isn't it? And they sort of introduced this little sort of quirk, this tick of his catchphrase as well, where he pretty much says yes, or yes, 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 or a bit Jeff Goldblum potentially, isn't it? Oh yes, yes, yes. And as a catchphrase, which sort of features in most of his dialogue in his handful of appearances. There's only a handful of appearances really of in the main book, hither and thither. Given that we're talking about these two guys together, Crocmaster and Raptor, I thought I'd just mention that they do appear in the IDW book Scarlet Strike Force. It was kind of a slightly ill-fated book that was cancelled before it was even came out, but delving into a bit more of the weird and wacky of G.I. Joe. So if that is your bag, then I think that era of G.I. Joe is one to look out. It's not for everybody, but there we go.
This arc didn't even finish.
No, was it 3 issues they got to?
There's the special, there's the mask special, which is like another issue, and then there's just the 3 issues, and the paperback collection has the special, and then 1 and 2 and 3, and the final page is sort of the new Cobra Commander saying, like, we're gonna get him, and then there was never another issue. Great cartooning in this arc. And but yes, this is a version of the G.I. Joe team running around with a Decepticon on the team. So yes. maybe not for everyone. This happens post Revolution, that crossover.
Where they sort of Hasbroverse, everything all mushed together. Yeah. Right. Okay, who is up next? It's Crystal Ball. So Crystal Ball is a fascinating sort of character. He's got this amazing kind of backstory of how he came about, which varies in the telling somewhat. That Stephen King or his son came up with the character and the file card on the basis of something that they'd one or two of them created, maybe one of them more so than others, but who knows? And kind of as part of that, them coming up with this character, his son also ended up being given the privilege of having his file name on Sneak Peek, which was Tim. Do you remember off his first name off the top of your head? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
No. But if I say no slowly enough, you can Google it. No.
And it was. Here we go. Owen King.
Here is another Cobra whose action figure is grimacing in the sculpt. And also, I think Crystal Ball is the oldest character in all of G.I. Joe who gets an action figure.
In terms of his age?
His age, yeah.
Interesting. I've not thought about that before.
Because, I mean, it's sort of like how when you're in school as a kid, you assume all your teachers know each other and like each other, and neither is actually true necessarily. And as a kid, I didn't think about how old all the Joes were, but if you'd asked me, I would have probably sort of guessed they were all like 25 and like the same age. But like, no, some of the Joes are 24 and some of them are 30 and some of them are 42, and Hawk is probably 50. but Cristobal has white in his hair.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's quite
yeah,
Doctor
true.
Strange light, isn't he?
He is a
little
bit
bit
like
in design.
Craven the Hunter as well.
Yeah, I get some vibe as well, and kind
Hmm.
of sword and sorcery a little bit as well. Kind of a mishmash of a few things going on there. I don't know much about this guy because I never had the action figure, and he was never in any of the Marvel comics, was he? So, but he appeared,
Oh, was he?
or was he? Oh no, he was
Yeah,
in a
yes.
special mission, wasn't he? Ladies' Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Appeared in Special Missions Ladies'
course.
Day, which was
Of course.
not presented, not written by Larry Hama. I think
Trimpe, wasn't it?
Trimpy written, wasn't it? And so the tone of the issue is somewhat different to a standard G.I. Joe adventure, I would say. A little bit different. And so it features both Crystal Ball in his only Marvel appearance, as well as Raptor, who actually does keep up with his catchphrase in his appearance. Yes. I was going to mention as well that the stylings of Crystal Ball seem to draw a little bit of influence from the actor Vincent Price as well. So I think more than a little of the DNA in there.
We should
But
say
he did show up in quite a few issues of the IDW era. Am I right?
Yeah,
he did.
Even 2 months ago, Hama has said he likes this character now.
Yeah, after not liking him at all when he was first introduced, he sort of somehow grown on him.
Can you go back to sorry, we're talking about the comic. Go for it.
I was just going to say that in his appearance when he was reintroduced into the IDW Larry Hama era, this appearance where Firefly recruits him for a mission. It's brilliant. He's sort of introduced. He's somewhere in the southern United States in this sort of psychic shop, and giving ropey readings to people. But they're not the typical tall, dark, and handsome wish fulfillment. He's talking to this lady. He says, "You will meet a short, pasty-faced sewage worker with marginally acceptable looks who..." "Short, pasty-faced, marginally acceptable? What happened to tall, dark, and handsome?" "I tell it like it is, lady. I'm no mere charlatan." And then Firefly interrupts. "Get out. You don't have a future, you pathetic cow. You only have a tomorrow full of regret and unfulfilled promises." This is how Larry Hama's dialogue at its greatest. I think he just has an ear for these kind of when he gets to insulting.
And Cristobal shows up recently too. He's in.
Yeah, so he features in this arc as they're sort of raiding the Chrysler building and using his hypno shield and sort of leaning a bit into his abilities. He appears as a John Royal cover, and then in sort of the next we see him really is Snake Hunt. So he's sort of working on the side for Zartan, and in Mufti as a pizza delivery driver for Braco Bros Pizzas, and he's got a miniature little charm to hypnotize people with. So yeah, it's not forgotten about
just
him.
a quick sidetrack. Are there any anagrams of Cobra that haven't been used yet?
I doubt it.
Okay.
So this comic appearance, I loved that he was doing recon at the edge of Springfield as this pizza delivery guy. I was a little sad that he wasn't in costume, because even though characters need to be out of costume if they're going to dinner, sort of in their civilian life, or if they're in disguise, a character doesn't have as much power for me if they're wearing a t-shirt and a sleeveless vest, right? Yes, of course it's Cristobal, but it's not really Cristobal unless he's got his crazy thing and his crazy thing and his crazy thing.
It looks like he's suddenly gone to the gym and he's de-aged a little bit, and the only reference point, well, not the only one, but the way you can tell it's Crystal Ball is just because he's got the mini amulet. Otherwise, without that, you could easily think that's not Crystal Ball.
I am okay with him getting de-aged because the continuity of Real American Hero, it's another year further out from the Vietnam conflict. Dawn Marino is old enough to join the Joes. She was just Cobra Youth. Sean Collins, is the son of a contemporary of the Joes. Now he's a Joe. I'm okay with it. But in terms of the toy, something that we should say, and I think we sort of we all know this and we forget to say it out loud. Crystal Ball's shield has a lenticular sticker on it. And we have seen this on Lightfoot's little tank, and we've seen it on Charbroil's backpack, and we've seen it on the Bat's chest piece.
Ooh, look at that.
So there are these, there are these little plastic ridges. It's the kind where if you drag your fingernail across it, you can feel the texture. And the ridges of plastic are cut at angles. And so depending on what angle you look at this image, you either see one image or another or another or another. Comic book fans, you saw this on the Dan Jurgens cover to Sensational Spider-Man 0 during the Clone Saga. And I think of all of the uses for those G.I. Joe stickers, like a little bit on a backpack or a tiny tank that's kind of like a backpack. That's a great added detail. And certainly the sort of depth you see in the Bat's chest piece adds a lot of sort of play value. But I think if I had to pick one, this is the best, because you immediately understand this guy's going to hypnotize me. Like this is, we're dealing with sort of a trope and a stereotype, like he's got a mustache, he's got these sort of cues in his hair and his costume, right? And the painting does a lot of the work. The Hector Garrido package painting, but this guy is definitely here to hypnotize you.
If there's one thing,
like this isn't like if you think of his shield as an accessory that like accidentally got packed with the Terradrome, like this isn't like on a tabletop and Cobra's looking at a map or something and it's interactive, like we're going to attack here. No, we're going to attack here. It's like, no, I know what that pattern is. That pattern is only to hypnotize me.
Is he one of the only figures that didn't come with a handheld weapon?
Yes.
Maybe. Okay.
Good point, Chief. Yeah.
I'd never spotted that before. Just looking at the packaging now, it's like, okay, yeah, fine. It doesn't seem to be, obviously not everyone comes with a gun, but some of them come with things that they hold which do things. But yeah, just a shield, which is.
I would have to guess that as the production budget for that year's line of loose figures, it's like, okay, we're going to spend a little bit more on Sneak Peek and Fast Draw because they have more gear and it's bigger and it's heavier. Sneak Peek's gigantic telescope thing and Fast Draw's gigantic backpack. And some of these guys come with pets. It's more plastic. More plastic is more pieces to make, and also it's heavier in the shipping. And I would guess that if they make one character a little heavier, a little more intensive, a little more expensive, they can make another character a little less expensive, a little lighter. Because Crystal Ball, he could have a pistol.
Takes away from his primary ability, though, doesn't it?
Yes, that's a good point. It may also, that may be sort of the story logical reason. The other thought I had, looking back to this Hector Garrido painting, there is a wonderful bit of red light that is cast on the left side of Crystal Ball's face in this painting, which seems to be coming from the shield itself, even though the shield is in front of him and sort of realistically might not do. Actually, I guess if it's against,
he's sort of slightly looming over it, isn't he?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, but you see the pink on the bottom of his outstretched hand, and you see there's that pink and red on the left side of his face, and but then there's that yellow light from the explosion. See the off-camera explosion that's on the other side of his face.
Yeah, very cool. I like the bit of text at the top of the card which says snap-on, stay-on accessories as opposed to snap-on, fall-off accessories.
Fall off, yeah. He's got red eyes as well. I hadn't really thought about this.
In the toy, too.
In the toy and
really?
the card art, yeah. That's pretty wild.
I think my brother, I wanted this when new figures came out. My brother and I would look on the back and we'd call them like, oh, I get this guy. Well, I get this guy. I get this guy, and I definitely called Crystal Ball, and my brother was fine to let that one go because this guy doesn't come with a machine gun or a backpack, and he's not realistic.
Cool. One last thing, just to highlight again, we've got the
yes.
IDW Cobra book where Crystal Ball played quite a large role, and seemingly inspired by the comics writer Alan Moore in his look and his kind of metallic kind of finger ring glove things on his fingers there. But we won't linger on this. But yeah, another great and very different take on the character. If you take nothing else away from this, I'd say go and check out the Cobra run by Costas and
Gage, Christos Gage and Mike Costa.
Antonio Fuso, is it?
And Antonio Fuso on most of the art for that run. Yeah, great run. Yeah, outside of the Hammer written stuff, probably my favorite. Second favorite on the list, perhaps. So next up, final one of the evening. Chief, this one was the one that you were going to pick as your go-to guy for your selection. Big Boa. What is it about Big Boa that connects for you?
I was always I used to watch quite a lot of boxing with my dad, and my friends used to come around for big fights, probably up until I was about sort of 14 or 15, between the age of like 10 and then, but also big Rocky fan from a movie point of view. And so, any character that is wearing boxing gloves and has a singular kind of, not motive, but a singular skill set, or like kind of Crocmaster reptile trainer, or Raptor,
a unique idiom.
Yeah. And it's just interesting to think that Cobra is employing this guy to whip the troops into shape. So yeah, and again, another very interesting take of this character from the IDW continuity, where he's doing a similar thing but a little bit different, but the character's a lot more cerebral and just fleshed out a bit more, which I guess they had the time and the want to do. But yeah, how much does he appear in the Marvel ARA run? Again, not much, even less than Crocmaster.
I will show you the amount that he appears on the Marvel ARA run.
Look at that godpiece. Incredible. Love it.
It is this page in the...
Oh, is that it? Order of Battle,
in the Order of Battle guidebook. Yeah, one page. And the story is that, it was presented alongside Rocky, who is not showing on the screen because of my blooming logo in the top right-hand corner.
Was Rocky later redacted from...
Yeah, so he appeared in an issue and then was redacted, and it was all because so he was going to, I think the idea was that he was going to be the villain opposite Rocky as the Joe, but as a very and Marvel sort of ran it in the Order of Battle slightly prematurely before all of the paperwork had been signed, and at the very last minute, Sylvester Stallone signed up a deal with a rival toy manufacturer. Is it Calico?
To do the Rambo figures.
To do a set of Rambo figures. So that was, I guess, the appeal is that it was instead of him being a single figure in the G.I. Joe line, it could be a whole line of figures for him to have for his own line. So
Calico.
I think a lot of people that use the Rambo 50 cal for Roadblock on the classified line. I'm sure early on someone was saying a replacement 50 cal for when Roadblock first came out from that classified line. He had the futuristic gun. I think a good replacement was one of the Rambo figures weapons. But yeah, I mean, look at him. He's again, it's just a ridiculous looking figure that's fantastic. Futurized helmet, weird angles, slopes, and stuff going on everywhere. Just why has he got it on? Why? Amateur boxing, they wear headgear. He's got headgear, but it's how are you hurting him in the ring if he's got a helmet on? It's just, I don't get it. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, if you're getting in a fight with him and you go by the name of Bazooka in the IDW comics, then you would try and hit him out about the head with your bazooka to try and knock him out.
Look at that middle picture. He looks, or the one on the right, he looks absolutely, diabolical, doesn't he? He looks demonic almost. But did he not come with boxing gloves as the action figure?
Yeah.
Okay.
He did.
Were they just hidden in the package? All right.
Yeah, so funny that you say, that Crystal Ball, one of the few figures without a gun.
Of course, yeah.
Another figure here, he came with boxing gloves and this sort of punching bag thing.
Yeah, with Joe on it.
Punching bag with stand.
When I saw this figure, I knew I had to own it because I like magenta and fuchsia as a color. And so here was this G.I. Joe toy that had it, but the gloves were such a different kind of accessory, and they work so well. They slide on, they stay on. You can also pull them off. It's not like two pieces that clip together. They don't like just stick on the top half and then you can see his fingers on the bottom, clip on Wolverine claws or anything like that for some toys.
And the size is really good. A lot of, weapons in the G.I. Joe world maybe are oversized and look a bit silly, but here they look great. They look perfectly proportioned. Look at the size of his quads. He's absolutely ripped.
He's ripped.
And the helmet, to Chief's point about the helmet before, like with Crocmaster, it makes him less human. Yeah. Because we can see he's a human because we can see skin, but then we don't ever get to see his face, and so that begs questions. Why is he breathing through this mask? Is it oxygen? Is he scarred? Is it more about anonymity? If it's about anonymity, there are some, why do you have this evil looking red visor?
Right, it's almost Cylon-esque, isn't it? It's almost taking a page from the Cylons. It's fantastic.
And I love the idea that a figure that's not necessarily going to go out in combat is limiting. Like maybe you don't stick him on the back of the Hiss or the side of the Rage to go attack Joe headquarters. Maybe you do, but then you take off his boxing gloves and hey, we had another accessory pack 4. So my brother, interestingly, someone gave my brother Big Boa, so we both had Big Boa. But my brother kept his gloves off and gave him an AK-47. It could come with the Cobra officer. And but I love the idea that back at Cobra headquarters, you could have a scene unfolding in your game where Big Boa is training some Vipers or Cobra soldiers, and they're not doing very well. And then, in the way that, like in season 2 of the cartoon in '86, Sergeant Slaughter takes out all of these Cobras every time he shows up, right? In our games, Big Boa shows up, and the Joes are nervous. Like, yes, they have machine guns, and he doesn't. But if it's going to be hand to hand, Big Boa's, as his name says, he's big, and also he punches very well.
He's like an end of level boss in a video game, isn't he? He's like, you get through all the other guys, and then suddenly he doesn't even need guns. He's that much of a badass. He doesn't need guns. He just take you out with a side salad to left and a main portion to right.
I was going to say, instead of it being him being like the Cobra equivalent of Rocky in the end, he's almost like the Cobra equivalent of like Sergeant Slaughter, like the drill sergeant, putting the Cobras to work, sort of train them up, put them through their paces. Yeah,
like Tim said, it brings another play style, doesn't it? Because it's not just all your heroes are going out and fighting all the villains. You've got internal stuff play going on in the Cobra base where he is training up these raw recruits kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting, but also interesting that Larry decided, nah, not using this guy, whereas he used other similar funky looking characters but couldn't find a place for this one.
Yeah, again, he's got some brief appearances in the Devil's Due era, and then he was also introduced in the IDW Cobra book as a sort of very different, that key of being the Cobra trainer still being there, but a very different visual look to him. So sort of,
but he wasn't full on. He was obviously Cobra, but does he? I forget. I'm going to do a reread. I think he kind of comes around a bit to not be full on Cobra or betrays them. Or
I don't think. Yeah.
Let it
he sort of gets a bit chummy with Chuckles when he's sort of. when he's trying to sort of integrate himself into Cobra.
The IDW Cobra series was trying to take a more grounded approach. So at the same time, IDW was publishing the main GI Joe, which was sort of the like regular military action. They were publishing Origins, which was spotlight stories, and they were publishing Cobra, which all three things were in continuity. But Cobra was about Chuckles by himself in under deep cover, having infiltrated Cobra before anyone knows what Cobra is, and to help sell the idea that no one knows what Cobra is not this ostentatious international army with like flamboyant supervillain costumes with bare chests and metal cod pieces, right? So maybe this version of Big Bo would have gotten to the costume that we're used to.
Yeah, maybe. And one of the things I liked and appreciated about it was, I know Christos Gage co-wrote with Mike Costa that first mini, but then Mike Costa took on sole writing credits for the book, and he had come off of a Transformers run at IDW, which was much lamented as being one of the worst written Transformers books ever. His run on that series, and it was not good. And then to go from that to then turn in exemplary work on this book was a real, I don't know, maybe it's just he didn't want to write big robots and he wanted to write undercover agents.
I'm just, this is not a Transformers episode, but I'm just going to put in a vote of confidence. I did like Costa's Transformers.
Oh, did you?
run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It means he's a good writer, I guess.
We've also got a late up to the minute edition here, looking ahead to the future. It is the John Royal cover for G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero 297, which will be coming out later on this year. Look at that. What a great dynamic cover.
Can I do two quick honourable mentions? Cesspool as a weirdie. He's fantastic. Probably been talked at length on several episodes of Talking Joe. Listeners, go back and check those out. And also someone else who's Road Pig. I'm a big fan of Road Pig. I think he's weird enough that he's got a split personality, and he carries around a massive sledgehammer mallet kind of thing, and he wears American football shoulder pads, so he's a dreadnought, I guess.
It's a strange choice that in the IDW run, Road Pig's two personalities don't switch back and forth between lowercase lettering and uppercase lettering, because that's much more legible now with computer lettering and printing on glossy paper. You'd think that they wouldn't have wanted to do it in the Marvel run, and they would want to do it now, but everyone seems to have forgotten to do it now.
Yeah. And it's a great, simple, way of showcasing the split personalities, just very easily. But I'm a big fan of Road Pig.
Cool. So I was going to then sort of move on to a pivotal point in the Marvel comics, which was issue 98, which I'm calling Death of the Weirdos. So we've kind of alluded to it. Like, did any of these guys have a later appearance? Well, they did have an appearance which made them late, as in the late Crockmaster, the late Voltar, the late Raptor. So it was a sort of Larry Hama cleared decks somewhat appropriately on a boat on the freighter, the landlocked freighter. Cobra Commander. Some of these Cobras were having a meeting inside the freighter. Then Cobra Commander threw in a bunch of Cobra weirdos in to join them, including Mindbender and Raptor.
Is that Tyrone at the front, who is supposed to be like 18? He looks about 45.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, Tyrone, Captain Min.
And he's on
Billy.
the cover. Tyrone is on the cover.
Yeah, incredible scenes.
Yeah, somewhat unceremoniously, they sort of set off a series of explosions, and the freighter follows the channel down into the this Cobra Mountain, and then it's exploded behind them, sort of trapping them in, and that was the last we saw of most of these weirdos. Some of them make a reappearance. Dr. Mindbender is brought back as a kind of clone. Zartan, Billy, and Firefly make their escapes, but
what do you think then? Obviously, Larry is famously known or quoted as saying he only writes, a page at a time with no clear end point. He gets there when he gets there. But obviously, his love for Dr. Mindbender is very much known because he's in pretty much every single IDW ARAR issue. And so do you think he was definitely right, when I kill these guys off in issue 98, we will never see these guys again? Or do you think in the back of his head he was thinking, some of these guys are going to escape?
I think he knew he could come up with a way to bring some back
If needed.
If needed. And Hasbro made a new Dr. Mindbender action figure a couple years later, and a new Firefly action figure, and a new Zartan. So his hand got forced.
Right.
Okay. Seeing how he's bringing characters back from the dead now who don't have new action figures, and he's being forced to, I think, had the toy line stopped around issue 98 and he had written another 55 issues, I think he might have gotten around to bringing someone like Mindbender back anyway. But right. Like as fans, I think we're often, it's like, when is my favorite character coming back? Or as toy collectors, it's like, when is that toy showing up? And as a writer, in any one issue or any one story, he can only reasonably juggle 10 or 15 characters. And so an act like this is just making things easy on himself, because by issue 98 he's got like 100 characters.
Yeah, right. And also off panel deaths are much easier to write out of if you ever want to bring them back, rather than having characters shot on panel or heads chopped off on panel, or things like that. When
we see Captain Min's corpse 10 or 20 issues later, it's pretty A, definitive, and B, grisly.
Is it just a skeleton or
Crystal?
Very good. Yeah.
Poor old Voltar. He gets like a panel or something here. He's got like his maybe 4 issues or so that he's appeared into this date to date, and across a handful of issues, appears in a couple of panels here, and then that's it. And I think people forget about him. I found out a pop fact about Voltar. Voltar in this appearance in issue 92, they've got Long Range on the front cover of the issue, and Long Range, his face very much looks like Voltar. He's got the helmet, the thing over his eye. And I found out that I think it was in one of the toy catalogs released advertising. Which way around was it? Advertising Long Range toy. They often sort of have prototype figures to do that, because they have to do the photography so early. And they used a repainted version of Voltar's head on the figure to advertise Long Range in this catalogue. It's one of the updates on 3D Joe's just in towards late June. So learn something new every day, even if it relates to something that happened almost 40 years ago sometimes. So excellent stuff. So I think that was us done, sort of talking about some of our favorites Crazy Cobras. And we're part of Cobra Convergence, so something is happening every single day this month. We are sandwiched in between lots of other fine fan creators. So coming up tomorrow, there is the Human Mechanism MK2 and Audible Interludes. Later on, there's My Side of the Laundry Room, Jay Bartlett, Mate Mylar, who was on the show with Chief a while back, the Artishark, Action Robot Punch, Anything Joe's, They Gone, A Toy Kind of Mood, Codename New 2 Vero 2, G.I. Joe Berg, and Star Joe's G.I. Joe Berg, with friend of the show Steve Jubber, and Star Joe's with friend of the show John Thurmond, and Cobra Lang on July 24th. So that's the kind of the next few days up ahead, and it's all going on until the end of July. So check out some of those other great creators as part of Cobra Convergence.
What's the Talking Joe plans when you come to the end of the Devil's Due run? Are you jumping straight into IDW?
Well, it's still far off. We're getting through them, but they did put out a lot of comics. So when we're doing a couple of issues at a time, we're still still sort of in the Brandon Jerwa era. So we've got a good set of issues to go.
Are we only halfway through? And we've been doing this for a year and a half.
Yeah, about halfway through, probably. Yeah. So there's.
I noticed you didn't cover the Dark Horse comics.
Well, there are only 8 of them.
Yeah,
and
but
also
they're not really the about.
They're not the same continuity. That's a completely different thing to the side. It doesn't really sort of. There's not much there in the Venn diagram of overlap between.
I guess you
a real
get
American
to those
hero
when you've exhausted every other Joe comic.
Yeah. But yeah, and sort of spending lots of time discussing the 3D comics and all of those kind of things. But that was it, I think. So, guys, where can people find out more about you and where to find you, Tim?
My comic book store is Hub Comics, which is a brick and mortar shop in Somerville, Massachusetts. Somerville borders Boston and borders Cambridge. So. When I say we're outside of Boston, I don't mean we're like 2 hours outside of Boston. I mean we're 2 subway stops outside of Boston. And my G.I. Joe blog is realamericanbook.com.
Excellent. And Chiefy, where can people find you these days?
Armour Geekdom is a Instagram account which I just mainly do some daily posts on trading cards, and also if you're into trading cards, Marvel, Star Wars, Garbage Pail Kids, that kind of thing, hop on over to Armour Geekdom Box Breaks on Facebook. I've just got a load of new products come in, actually. They arrived today from the good old US of A. I've got a box of Series 4 Marvel Universe from 1993. I've got a Fleer 1994 Marvel Universe sealed box. I've got a QFX Marvel Premium. This is the Joe Quesada, 1997. I want to say on this one. I think it's a 90 card base set, and Joe Quesada went around New York City taking photographs and then did art superimposed on top of the images of New York City. We've got some Star Wars stuff down here. I've got some crappy Disney sequel trilogy stuff, but then I also got some good stuff. I've got some Star Wars Galaxy early stuff. So yeah, opening boxes of trading cards, selling spots in the break, posting out the card to people. So hop on over to Armour Geekdom Box Breaks for that. What about you, Mark? Where can people find you?
So you can find us at talkingjoe.co.uk. That is the website that has links to all of our media outlets. It's got links to Facebook, Instagram, all of the podcasts, the YouTubes, and more. You can even leave us messages now. So it's got all of the stuff. It's also got links to our Oops.
So I can send you pictures of my surgery. Right, I'm on it.
No, don't do that.
Okay.
It's also got links to our patreon.com, Talking Joe. A big thanks to our backers, Richard, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, and Justin, who are getting early access to all sorts of shows and extras. So if you want to be like them, those cool kids, you know where to go. So I think that is us done. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you are new to Talking Joe, hope to see you again sometime soon. And I guess as we sign off, I'll say, remember that
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast
with one guy in America and 2 guys in the UK, one of whom is in his loft. And...
What send off, Mark? Keep it geek.
G.I. Joe fans, get ready to converge. This year is the 40th anniversary of G.I. Joe, and the G.I. Joe fan community is ready to celebrate. HCC 788 presents, in special association with Surveillance Port and Serpentor's Lair, Cobra Convergence 6 coming in July 2022. For the entire month of July, your favorite G.I. Joe fan creators will be bringing you new Cobra-related content. We have creators presenting every day in July. Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse, The Full Force, Joe Motion Videos 82, Cobra Island, Half the Battle, Peg Warmers, Plastic Battles. We will celebrate our love for G.I. Joe by dedicating the whole month of July to G.I. Joe's enemy, Cobra. Get ready to turn the whole world blue. Cobra Blue. Snuva's Corner Cafe, What's on Joe Mind, Toy Connections, JLS Comics, Special Mission Force, Forgotten Figures, Joe on Joe Podcast, Talking Joe Podcast, The Human Mechanism Mark II, Audible Interlude. The calendar of presenters can be found at hcc788.com. Check the calendar and don't miss a single entry of this year's Convergence. My Side of the Laundry Room, Jay Bartlett, Mate Mylar, The Artist Shark, Action Robot Punch, Anything Joe's, They Gone, A Toy Kinda Mood, Codename New 2 Vero 2, G.I. Joeberg, Star Joes. You can get involved in Cobra Convergence. You are invited to create your own Cobra content and participate in a weekly promotion. Check hcc788.com for details. Cobra Lang, McDowan, Joe Colton, Podcast from the Pit, Fun School Ronnie, Order of Battle Podcast, The Skull Reviews, Articulated Points, Hooded Cobra Commander 788. Join us in July for Cobra Convergence 6. It's time to come together for fun, for community, and for Cobra!